Want to know who the real Rassie Erasmus is? Let me tell you. Chapter 1. The name Rassie came later. For the first 18 years of my life, I was simply Honey, the shortened version of the name on my birth certificate, Johan. That's me, simply Johan Erasmus, no other names. My old school friends and people who knew me as a lightie still call me Honey. Despatch, where I grew up in the Eastern Cape, is a small working-class town, home to 40,000 people, about 30 kilometers from Port Elizabeth, PE, now Gqeberha. I was born on 5 November 1972 in the provincial hospital of the neighboring town of Uitenhage, just across the bridge over the Swartkops River. Despatch didn't have a hospital. It's that small. Most of the people who lived in Despatch worked at the Goodyear factory or at Volkswagen in Uitenhage. They're proud people and they work hard. Never windgat. You couldn't be windgat in Despatch because there was nothing to be windgat about. I'm the youngest of 3. My elder sister Martli, 8 years older than me. She and her husband Bert and their 2 children have lived in England for the past 20 years, where she works as a social worker for the National Health Service. Despite the distance between us, we are still very close. Then there's my other sister Gerda, 3 years older than me, who lives with her husband Willie and their 2 children on a farm in Baviaanskloof. When I was growing up, that farm belonged to my grandparents, and we would go there every single holiday. The tradition continues to this day, and I try as often as I can to go to the farm to get away from the stress of my job. Gerda and I have a wonderful relationship because we are closer in age. When I started high school, she was in Standard 9, grade 11. After Gerda was born in Caledon, my parents moved to Despatch. They moved around a bit before finally settling in a small house at 98 President Wright Street. I remember that house so well. So many good things happened there, and some bad things. When I look back on my life in Despatch, I can say I was a happy boy in that small town with lots of friends. I enjoyed school and was successful playing sport. I had a loving, supportive mother and 2 wonderful sisters. My father was difficult, but I loved him all the same. Let me tell you about my complicated father, Abel Hermanus Erasmus. While he did play a bit of rugby at school and at teachers' training college, he was more artistic and an incredible musician. My sisters inherited those talents. I got my sporting abilities from my mom. My father came from Sunland, 25 kilometers from Kirkwood and around 45 kilometers from Despatch, in the Sundays River Valley. Abel's father, my grandfather, had an unusual job. He was known as the waterfiscal, water fiscal, the guy who regulated the water flow through the irrigation systems for the citrus farms on the banks of the Sunday River. I used to love visiting him in his office, with its 30-plus large stopwatches, big silver government-issued necklaces watches that were used to time how long the irrigation sluices would be open to irrigate the land. For example, a farmer would get water for 2 hours, timed to the last second by those big stopwatches the workers wore on a strap around their necks. My dad's younger brother, Johan Erasmus, known fondly as Oom Moos, loved to tell the story of how my father arrived home one evening with his clothes torn and covered in blood and mud. He was shaking in fear. Moos, who was about 10 years old at the time, thought it was a monster at the gate and fled. It turned out my father had been hit by a train, which must have either been going very slowly or hit him with no more than a glancing blow. He wasn't badly hurt, more shaken up by the experience. Even after my dad passed away, Moos was still laughing at the story of the day he thought his older brother was a monster at the gate.